go. What's happening, everybody? It's Monday, and it's time for a live video. I know, wait, Monday? We don't do live videos on Monday. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to start trying to do some more live video conversations with everyone. And Monday seems to be the day when most people are on my channel checking things out. So we're going to do these on Mondays. Try to get in a habit of doing them maybe once or twice a month, just to add a little bit more content out there for everyone, give you a little bit more information about the Myrtle Beach area, try to bring on some awesome guests for everyone. And hopefully we're going to get some people to join here in the room in a minute. I see people are coming on already, which is awesome. If you guys are checking in, tell us in the comments where you're watching from tonight. And if you guys have questions, please put them in the comments. Please chat. That's going to make our job tonight so much better. And we're going to have a whole lot more fun sharing stuff with you. But I have an awesome guest lined up for this evening. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot about insurance in the area, flooding, hurricanes, all kinds of stuff, the questions that you want to know about moving to Myrtle Beach and how it all relates to that. And so I have an amazing guest lined up. So let me just go ahead and bring her on here with us. Hey, Terri, how are you?
Hey, Jeremy, doing good.
Awesome.
I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend.
Oh, we definitely did, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, let me introduce you to everyone. So everyone, I want you to meet Terri Branson. She is with Insure, a local insurance agency here in town. Terri, tell us a little bit about yourself. Have you been doing insurance in Myrtle Beach in this area? Are you brand new to the business, or have you been doing this for a little while?
I've been doing this for what seems like a long time, about 25 years, and all of my here along the Grand Strand. I've actually written coverage in North Carolina as well, and all the way down to Bluffton and Hilton Head, but I live here actually in Surfside, so my bread and butter, so to speak, is Grand Strand and a little bit inland. We've seen a lot of changes in the insurance business, so it's always interesting, always changing.
Awesome, awesome. So I guess we could say you're an expert when it comes to insurance in this area, would you say?
I'd say as much as anybody can be, because whatever I know today is liable to change tomorrow.
Awesome, awesome. Well, guys, tonight I brought on Terri because I wanted to talk about insurance in our area. You know, one of the big questions that I get asked on a regular basis is Myrtle Beach flooding? Is everything going underwater in Myrtle Beach? And, you know, if you've seen any of the images or things from the last several years, we have had some major storms that have happened here in the area. And, you know, it's been a little damaging, to say the least, here in our area for sure. Would you agree with that, Terri?
Yeah, it has. And, you know, even some of the storms where we, missed it, we definitely had some interesting and nail-biting time, watching the path of these storms. And honestly, if we're mostly talking about flood, some of the storms that didn't even really cause us any direct problem on the Grand Strand, where they dumped water in North Carolina, is what caused our severe flooding in South Carolina.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually just showing a couple images of some of the stuff from our floods in the past. And, you know, one of the most recent storms that we really had that were kind of tragic here in our area was Hurricane Florence. And I think that's the storm you were referencing, where it actually took place in New Bern, North Carolina. And exactly. New Bern is not close to Myrtle Beach at all. I think I'd figured it's like 4.5, 5 hours away, would you say?
Yeah, probably. Yep.
And it basically, Hurricane Florence got over New Bern, North Carolina, and just stalled and just dumped buckets and buckets of rain on it. And just all of that water kind of had to find its way out to the ocean. And of course, it did that through all the streams and rivers and creeks and waterways here along the Grand Strand. And I always tell people it kind of reminded me of like that bad horror movie that you may have seen, and like this real tragic scene and bad scenes coming up in the movie, and you don't want to see it. And you're like, no, I can't watch, but you're kind of looking at it through here. We knew the flooding was coming down through, and we just kept watching slowly. Is it going to crest? Is it going to crest today? Is it going to crest today? Is it going to crest today? And then finally it hit that top, and then it slowly went down the other way. And it was pretty bad, wouldn't you say?
It was. You know what a lot of people forget from their middle school geography and geology classes is that for the most part, our rivers run to the south and they head to the ocean. So when some of these areas north and west of us get tons of rain like that, guess where it's got to go? Through our area in order to drain into the ocean. And so that's exactly what happened, just like you described, Jeremy. They got the storm, but we got the flooding.
Yeah, for sure. And, it was a sad event because, it was just a few years prior to that, we had Hurricane Matthew that came through here, and that did affect our area directly. With certain parts of the area getting flooded then, and some of those sections had just rebuilt and just got all set back up. And then here came Florence through again, and it just devastated. But anyway, we're going to talk about this more tonight. I can guarantee it. But I'm going to jump over here a minute to the questions, and let's just see who's joining in here with us tonight. Casper Katz jumping in from Virginia. What's happening? We also have Trees on the Beach, interesting name, coming from Kentucky in. We also have Jeff coming in from Hackenstown, New Jersey, and a whole bunch of other people. Let's see who else here. Owen says, loves your videos. Can't wait to leave Nassau County, Long Island. We can't wait for you to leave there too and come down here to the beach. We got plenty of space for you. Come on down. But before we get into what we want to talk about tonight, let's just see if there's any questions here right off the bat. And let's start with this question. This is a good one here. You might be able to answer. Casper wants to know, Terri. Hello, sir. You may go into this in the live video, but is there a site that tells flood rating, meaning what zone or where the more apt to flooding? I'll let you handle that one, dear.
There are actually several resources, but I'll tell you, most of them, in my opinion, are not that consumer friendly. So you can actually see the true FEMA flood maps if you visit it. Was set up by FEMA. It's completely dedicated to all issues surrounding flooding, flood insurance, all kinds of issues. But in my opinion, that site is not that easy to tell because the flood maps themselves are kind of ambiguous. We are moving toward, thankfully, a more technologically advanced method for looking at flood zones. So when I'm looking for one, I actually have a couple different flood insurance companies that let me use their website to search for a flood zone for every particular address. And flood zones are particular to address. So it's very possible that if Jeremy and I live right next door to each other, my house could be in a hazard flood zone and the line might run right in between our homes. Jeremy might be in an X zone where flood is not required. So the FEMA site, the floodsmart.gov is a good one. Horry County also has a site that does let you actually put in a property address. Some of those are still a little tough, but I would say that's another good resource. But you have to have a particular property address that you're going to look at, and then it will show you where the lines are between the different flood zones.
Yeah, and I would also, along with that, say, if you're thinking about moving to an area, it does not hurt to reach out to a local insurance agent. They are the experts who can pull the stuff and answer it in no time. They can look it up and tell you, here's where it is. And here's the other thing, too. Some of these sites and these maps and those things, they're not always the most up to date. Would you agree with that, Terri?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they try, but also the National Flood Insurance Program is making a big overhaul, and they're making some changes this fall that are not going to rely solely on those maps. So we're all going to learn come November, October, November, exactly what that even means.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We had another question here that actually came in long ago. They put it in as soon as they saw somebody wanted to really make sure their question was asked today. So Savannah CD said, "We love North Myrtle Beach. Hearts, Canada flag." I'm guessing maybe they're from Canada. And the question is, following the devastated faulty building collapse in Florida, are you concerned about your condos or apartment units here in the area? What would you say to that, Terri?
You know, that's going to be a really sticky one as they figure that out, I think, over the next few weeks. But it sounds to me like there was probably some faulty construction. And if not, then I think that they really missed the signs and did not heed the warnings of people who inspected the buildings and reported to the HOA. So honestly, I like to think, I don't know the ins and outs. You can answer better, Jeremy. I like to think that our local HOAs and property managers are doing a good job of minding those inspections and keeping their properties up to date. So to be honest, I would be more concerned about a small frame structure that maybe doesn't have a strong HOA than I would for our high-rise concrete and steel HOAs. What do you think about that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, it's that situation in Florida. I don't know the details of it because I haven't really done a bunch of research into it to see what's happening. It's definitely a tragic situation, and it breaks my heart of what happened there. But here in our area, I have not heard of any of those types of issues happening over the years. The other thing too, I think, is I don't know how large that building was, how tall it was. I know here in our area, for the most part, there is a height restriction. So I don't know if that building was, 40, 50 stories tall and it just was sitting on sand, and that's what caused it. I really don't know. I'm not a contractor, and I'm definitely not an insurance expert, so I don't know the details of it. Personally, I haven't heard of any issues or anything like that in our area. Obviously, the big thing is this: when you're thinking about buying a condo here in the area, is making sure one of the things that we put in with our offers, and I always include this on a condominium, is to get a copy of the minutes from the last board meeting. Find out if there are any special assessments. Find out where the budget is, and all of that information you need to know about buying that condo to make sure you're informed of what's going on. And, if there is any type of litigation, that's going to pop up. There are several areas on the beach, condominium complexes, that have litigation going on. One that just finally, it took forever to get resolved, but over in Myrtlewood Golf Course, Magnolia North, they had litigation against the builder forever and a day because there was some faulty work done on the outside balconies. They weren't given enough of a grade for the water to drain off, and so they were starting to rot. And that one went on for like 11 years, it seemed, or so. And that was a real long time, but the HOA stuck at it and got the judgment that they needed and got the repairs done on the building, and so everything's good to go there. Let's see what other questions we have. Thanks, guys, for jumping in today. I love the fact that everybody's getting active. And let's see what else we've got here. And then we'll get into some other fun things. We'll talk a little Disney here in a little bit, too. Are you excited for that, Terri?
I am.
Awesome. We already did talk about Owen. Owen says he's coming from Nassau County, Long Island. Trees on the beach. Where to get the least expensive insurance? My house down there is killing me with taxes and insurance. That's all you.
Well, Jeremy's heard me say this before, and I will repeat it until the day I finally get to retire. And that is that cheapest is definitely not always best. You could very well, by only going to the bottom line and looking for the cheapest insurance, you are likely to not have things covered when and ifs and going at your property. Please work with an agent that you trust that can customize a policy that gives you what you need. Or if there are things that you decide you don't want, you knowingly go into the purchase of that policy saying, okay, I'm willing to self-insure for this event or this event, but work with somebody who understands the marketplace and also gets to know you and what's important to you. The Grand Strand, really, I would say not just the Grand Strand, all of coastal South Carolina is expensive for insurance, as is Florida. And it's why? Because we are really prone to damage from tropical storms and hurricanes. That's the bottom line. If you want cheap insurance, you got to move to Columbia or Greenville, South Carolina. Now, there are ways to minimize the expense by updating your house, particularly the roof, and not having the roof be really old, by making updates to wiring and plumbing, keeping the property in good condition. I will say this too, it's the fact that most people don't know, keep your credit score good, because a high credit score will also give you lower insurance rates. I would say those are the backbone things for less expensive insurance, or at least keeping it in the range that fits for you.
And I would say to anyone and everyone listening to this video, either here live or watching it 3 years from now, Terri's website I put up here on the screen for you. It's weinsureadvocates.com. Go there and call her. Her contact information is there that you can get quotes and everything. It doesn't hurt to shop around. And Terri, you have access to multiple different places to try to get the best overall rate for what you need coverage wise for the people, and I remember the other day we saw one, and I had somebody who reached out to you and they got a quote, and yours was a little higher, but you also have to look at what's included. And, we had one the other day, they're insuring their house for less than what they're buying it for. And to me, that doesn't sound very wise to buy a house and insure it for less than what you're purchasing it for. Does that make sense to you to do?
It really depends on the neighborhood. We do not, as a rule, insure the property necessarily for the purchase price. What we're trying to arrive at is the real, actual today's prices cost to rebuild the house. And with the market as hot as it is right now, and properties going for, over asking price and that kind of thing, it's even more important that we run those cost estimators. Another facet of that, though, is that I'm sure most everybody here, if you're looking at moving or that kind of thing, I'm sure everybody who's watching this video has heard that across the country, building materials have skyrocketed. So it's a little bit of a moving target for us to even figure out what's an adequate replacement cost for the house. But I can tell you this, I've seen people quoting, and I'm saying recently, like last week, I was looking at quotes that another agent had done, and the value they had on this person's home came out to about $110 a square foot. And I'm just here to tell you, sorry, I'm going to pull my Southern, ain't no way you're going to rebuild a house for $110 a square foot. Maybe your storage shed. I mean, it's just not happening, people.
The she shed, huh?
The she shed, maybe, if it's really basic. So my general rule of thumb right now, and if somebody's watching this 6 months or 6 years from now, this figure is going to be vastly different. But today, July 5th, 2021, I'm saying we start at $150 a square foot. And if the house is finished off nicer than that, if you've got crown moldings and upgraded floorings and that kind of thing, then it's going to be a lot more than that. So those are the really important things to look at when we, the very first thing we figure out is how much coverage do we put on the dwelling, on the homeowner policy, and then the next few coverages are normally a percentage of that. But that's the biggest one is, how much would it really take to rebuild the house? That's what the customer expects if something happens.
Well, and Terri, too, I want you to also take a minute and share. I don't know if you remember. You remember the Vincent that you helped write for me, and he got a quote from, well, I think it was Prudential or somewhere. I don't remember what company, and it was so much less. He's like, my quote was so much cheaper, Jeremy. I can't use Terri because hers was this. And I remember sending you his policy that he was getting, and you looked at it, and within 30 seconds you went, oh my gosh, he doesn't want this.
Yes.
Share a little bit of what that was and what that was about.
Yeah. So South Carolina has a wind pool. North Carolina has one. It works a little differently. Florida has citizens insurance. Pretty much all of us states that are impacted frequently by hurricanes and tropical storms have some issue with wind insurance coverage. They're all a little different, but we all have some kind of issue with it. So these folks had, and I'm going to kind of make up around numbers. I think I had quoted them something like $1,900 a year for their homeowner policy, and it included all the coverage for wind and hail. Regardless of what brings the wind and hail, hurricane, tropical storm, doesn't matter. What you're looking at is wind and hail. And they had told Jeremy, oh my gosh, that's so much higher than this other quote we got. Our other quote was like $890 or something like that. And I was shaking my head and I said, well, I would never say never, but it sounds too good to be true. So he convinced his customers to send me the quote that the agent had sent them. And in reality, there were 2 attachments that the customers needed to look at. So the $890 bargain price for the homeowner was a homeowner policy that did not include wind and hail. The second attachment showed the wind and hail insurance premium because they had quoted it separately with our state program. So the real total for these customers ended up being, I think you can correct me, Jamie, I think it was over $6,000. So in the end, mine was actually a super bargain. They just really had not looked at the whole picture.
Yeah, and once they kind of looked at it, and you know, you made a quote that I have shared, I don't know how many times with people over the last, I don't know how many months, but basically this, when you go to some of those big name insurance companies and try to get your insurance from them, you're calling an 800 number, you're a number. Every time you call in, you're getting somebody different on the phone to talk to, and you never get the same person twice. You can't get the question answered without having to spend another 30 minutes going back through the story. Versus if I have my insurance with you and I have an issue, I can pick up the phone. I can call you at 491-6990, and you're going to answer the phone and you're going to tell me what to do and fix it. If I wanted to, I could walk in this office and see you in person probably as well. But even more so than that, if I walk into the grocery store, there's a good likelihood I'm going to run into you there. And, you know, and what you basically said was, I want to feel good at night. And when I see people out and about, I want them to feel good with what they have and be able to look me straight in the face and me look back at them. And so you're going to take care of people and get them the best with it. So that's one of the big reasons I would suggest to anyone listening to this video, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching a replay of it, is get a quote from somebody local that can tell you what's going on here in our market, understands Horry County, understands the coastline here, and can really help you with it. So let's jump back to some questions here. I know we have stuff to get to, but this is what happens. We get into questions. We'll get to it, I promise. So let's see here. Task Journey says, love your videos from Lancaster, PA. Task, you're so close to my hometown. I grew up in Reading, PA. And I'm actually helping some people right now. I just wrote a contract for them on the weekend. They're from Lancaster, PA as well. Tree says 4 months until retirement. So close.
Awesome.
It's getting so close. Let's see here. And Christensen says, I know someone in Cameron Village. I used to live in Cameron Village. It's a great community. Hopefully they have their issues fixed with the drainage in there. There were some problems with it over the years, definitely back when the 1,000-year flood and Hurricane Matthew came. Luckily, it didn't get any of the houses, but it was definitely on the roads, which made it real difficult. Let's see here. Tass says, question, moving soon in a few months, is Conway the worst area for floods? I'll let you take a stab at this one first, Terri.
Not in my opinion, although there certainly are some areas of Conway as well as really other parts of the county that are prone to flooding. The Waccamaw River, of course, does run through Conway. And when the Waccamaw is high, there are some areas that are underwater. But if you were just going to ask me what I think is the worst area for flooding, I would have to say it's Garden City, where Atlantic Avenue meets Waccamaw Boulevard. Because there's almost no dunes there. And I mean, that's a different kind of flooding.
Yeah.
That's ocean flooding, saltwater. But that to me is the worst place, because every time we have a full moon, it floods up over the streets there.
Yes, and that's a like you said, a totally different type of flooding. We have down here at time king, as in king and queen tides, and those king tides which are tides that happen throughout the year, and it's when the water rises higher than normal times of the year. And when those happen, the roads down in the Garden City area and down through there can be a little tricky to get around, no doubt. I showed a house down there. I had somebody was looking at a property to buy a beachfront home down there, and I think it was November, and there was one that was happening then. And that kind of goes along with the question that Lynn just asked about, someone told me to avoid Surfside Beach because it floods a lot. Is this true? If you're down along the beach, yes, it can be a little tricky down there, with some flooding right at the beach. Here's the thing I will say about Surfside or about Conway or Longs. We had flooding from Florence up in Longs, South Carolina, too. In Socastee, we had bad flooding.
Bad.
The thing is this: you want to work with a local agent who knows what's going on and can look at those things. And, when you find that home online and it just seems like it's this amazing thing, oh, it's all been redone inside and it's only $160,000. There's a reason why it's so cheap and why it's all been redone. It's because it had 4 feet of water sitting in it. And they're not going to advertise that. But if you go and look at a residential property disclosure, that's one of the questions that was even asked and added recently is, has this home flooded? And, you're going to get a lot of information. So it's more so than just kind of making a blanket statement of, does Conway flood? Conway is a huge area. If I pulled it up on a map and showed it to you, it's massive in size. And yes, there was flooding, but it was all concentrated into one main area for the most part in Conway. Same thing's true down in Surfside. Same thing's true in Socastee. Anywhere on the beach where we have flooding, yes, there is some of it, but it's more so working with a local who's going to be able to tell you, where those sections to avoid. And which ones are going to be prone to that. Would you agree with that statement, Terri?
I would, because I'll tell you, I'm really familiar with our area, and often, in fact, what my husband and I like to go out and do is we just go drive around and we take a look at some of these new neighborhoods. We take a look at neighborhoods that I've heard about where they've had issues, whether it be flooding or something else. And honestly, one of the things that concerns me the most is, like you mentioned, Jeremy, some neighborhoods in Socastee. And there are places there that have flooded and will continue to flood because, frankly,
I think maybe she froze. But what she was going to say, I believe, is that there are areas that flood, but it's not all of it. I think is what she was getting ready to say. She'll be back in a minute, I'm sure. But while we're waiting for her to come back, let's jump in here, and we're going to just answer a couple more questions. And hopefully she'll unfreeze here in a minute. So Casper said, thank you so much. I appreciate your help. All right, what's next here? From Upper Darby, PA, just outside Philly, but not for long. Moving to Myrtle Beach in a couple weeks. My wife and I are excited and love your videos. Helps me catch up on local attractions. Ian, I'm glad that you're enjoying it and glad that you're learning a lot about the area. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Yep, there she dropped out. She'll be back, I'm sure. Glad you're enjoying it. Let's see here. Jeff asked, what does flood insurance cost, best case, worst case? That is definitely a question we're going to get to, Jeff. I can guarantee you as soon as she gets back here. In the meantime, let me just answer some other stuff here. Ded said about thinking about buying a place at Myrtle Beach AY. Looking to move from Australia. Wow. Now that's a move, Jay. That's a serious move. Yep, Terri's having some internet issues. She just texted me, guys, but she'll be back, I'm sure. Let's see what else here is going on. Lynn says, my mom is moving to Water's Edge in Garden City Beach in November. Awesome. If she needs help making the move, call me. I'm a good real estate agent to help her with it. Let's see here. Brett Ashley wants to know, will condo rental prices come down? Prices up. Terri's back. There she is. I knew she'd come back. Will condo rental prices come down?
Sorry.
Prices are at least 3 times the amount we've paid in past few years. As a Canadian with our conversion, I won't go down until they do. I don't see prices going down anywhere anytime soon on anything, whether that's the insurance, rentals, buying, selling, anything. Prices are just going to continue to go up. We as an area as a whole, Myrtle Beach, has been one of the most affordable places along the East Coast, and we're just starting to slowly catch up. Terri, while you were gone, I just went through asking some questions, but I want to go back to this one that came in, which is specifically for you, and actually somebody asked this earlier today as well. Question, what does flood insurance cost, best case, worst case scenario? And before we answer this, I think the first thing we need to say is not all houses are required to have flood insurance here in the area. Only certain houses are going to be required if you have a mortgage. So why don't you first talk about that a minute, then talk about costs, and then I'll end up by sharing my thoughts on flood insurance and whether you need it or not. Okay?
Sure. So yeah, first of all, backing up to the beginning, not every home is in a hazard flood zone. And further than that, if you don't have a mortgage, then there's no legal requirement for you to carry flood insurance. Now, do I think it's a good idea? Yes, I'm a huge proponent of flood insurance, but it's not required if you don't have a mortgage. And it's also not required if you're not in one of the hazard flood zones. And FEMA has labeled those zones by letters. I have told people for years, X is your friend. So if you find that your property's in an X flood zone, then you're in a zone where flood is not required. I'm still going to recommend it because our area is really flat. And over the last few years, I've seen more flooding, not less. And I don't think that any of our coastal counties have taken nearly enough steps to mitigate flooding and keep it from happening. None of them. It's not an Horry County problem. In fact, I would say all the way across the country, most communities have not taken enough steps to keep flooding from happening. And instead of leaving wetlands and lots of trees to absorb that water, what have we done? We've torn it all down and put in more concrete and rooftops and things that don't absorb water. So pricing is really all over the place. So there's a couple things to understand. Number one, the National Flood Insurance Program FEMA sets the rates for those policies, and the maximum amount of coverage they offer on a residence is $250,000, with $100,000 in contents being the max. If you're in an X zone, you can buy that coverage right now for a little under, on a primary home, mind you, a little under $600 a year, something like $572, depending on your foundation. If you have an oceanfront house and it's built higher up off the ground, even with that height, you're still probably looking at a flood premium, and it's probably required. If you're oceanfront, you're probably in a VE zone. And good news premiums on those are $8,000 or $9,000 a year. And that's still for just $250,000 worth of coverage on the dwelling and $100,000 on contents. I also recently looked at a property in Garden City that was a little older, and it was really, really cute and beautifully updated, even on the ground floor where it was never meant to be finished and cute and livable. And I actually didn't have that one, but I reviewed it, and the current owner's flood premium is almost $16,000 a year. And I've seen them higher for properties that are in the high hazard zones, but they're not properly elevated. They don't meet floodplain requirements. And of course, the whole idea is that people across the country in the zones where they're at risk of flooding, that they would build up and get the living space out of the danger of floodwaters, whether it be from the ocean or the river or whatever. So the people who have not are really paying a penalty in when it comes to flood premiums for those properties that are low to the ground. What was your last question, Jeremy? What was I going to answer?
I think you kind of covered it all with it. Here's one thing that I would say, you talked about the flooding. Somebody mentioned earlier they had a home or friend that owned in Cameron Village. Here's the other part to think about that most people don't. There are so many parts of Myrtle Beach where the developer has gone in, and because we can get rain at times that'll drop, an inch of rain in 30 minutes, there's got to be a place for all of that water to be dispersed to quick off the roads. So all these developments have water runoffs and, little ponds, or they call them lakes, even though they're really nothing more than a hole that they, put some grass around it. And they build the homes on them and sell them as lot premiums. Then some properties might be $15,000, $20,000 more because it sits on that lake or pond. I rented a home down in Cameron Village many, many years back when all this flooding was happening. And we came close to having water in our house, not from the rain that was falling, but from the pond behind us that was collecting all that rain, because it kept raising up. And they told us it was because a beaver built a dam in the back where the last final pond, all the ponds are connected together with floats to make it all kind of level out. And then at the back, it drains out to the river. Well, a beaver, they said, built a dam and had it blocked up. And so that's why all of our neighborhood had, out front of my house, it was 3-4 feet deep in the street. I couldn't get out of my driveway for days. Yeah. So, in that type of a development where it's, $500-600 a year to have a policy, it's a no-brainer. So even though, you may not be required for your mortgage to have that, I would still recommend and say it is extremely wise money to look at doing. Now, on the other side of it, if you're in a neighborhood like mine, my house is landlocked. There's no ponds around it. That neighborhood has never had water in it in the 20-some years it's been around. You might be safe. You might not have anything to worry about for the flood insurance, but I still, as an agent, am always going to tell my clients, look at it and strongly consider doing such a thing. So, all right, let's jump over here to some more questions. Let's see here. Jeremy rocks. Yeah, we rock. We roll too. Eugene says builder in Raleigh is median square price of $175.
Absolutely. I'd buy that in Raleigh. I bet. Yep.
Tess says they're in Elizabethtown, close to Hershey.
That's where my niece went to college.
I grew up in that area. Always, we took trips to the Shady Maple Smorgasbord. You ever been there, Terry?
No, I have not.
Oh, if you ever go up there to visit, check it out. Why is crime so bad in Myrtle Beach? Ooh, good question on this. I cannot really say much on it because of fair housing laws, but here's what I can tell you in relation to crime. Not all of Myrtle Beach is crime-ridden. Not all of Myrtle Beach is flood-ridden. Not all of Myrtle Beach in Horry County has terrible schools. Okay? That's about as far as I can go on it. Terry, is there anything you'd like to add on to the subject?
Nothing. We don't have anything that's not happening across the country.
Yeah, very true.
And I don't think that's good, but that we don't have anything that's not happening pretty much everywhere else.
Yep. CC Stinchcomb. Hey, I'm meeting you. I think is it this week or soon? No, August. They're coming down in August. I'm getting to meet up with them. We're going to start looking for a house down here to get them moved down to the area. Glad you could join in today. If you have questions, drop them in the comments for sure. Let's see here. Misty says, question, is the Loris area safe? What about flooding there?
I actually historically have not seen a lot of flooding in Loris. So it depends on what you're gunning for. You know, Loris is a lot slower paced community than some of the others. Jeremy can answer a lot more about the neighborhoods there versus neighborhoods in other places. But strictly from a flooding standpoint, I would say historically, and that's, you know, I'm kind of like the investment guy. I can't predict, you know, that things are going to do what they've done historically. But historically, Loris has not had terrible flooding events.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Brett Ashley says, thanks for answering my question. Love your videos. Glad I could answer it. Oh, Terry's glad she can answer it too.
Yeah.
Dean says, love your videos. Is there a difference in cost of insurance for primary versus vacation home? Take it away.
There is actually. So we've been talking a lot about flood. With the National Flood Insurance Program, there's actually a $225 a year difference between the primary home and the secondary or the rental. In other, I can't talk. If it's a primary, you're going to pay $225 less than you would if that house is not owner occupied as a primary. Now, we also have some private flood markets to whom it doesn't make a difference. And I'm writing a lot with those for better coverage and better pricing, and they don't care about primary or secondary. But when it comes to the fire, the homeowner or landlord coverage, if that's the case, if you're going to rent it or if it's secondary, there is some pricing difference. Mostly, though, it's because not all insurance companies are gunning for the same risk. So the insurance companies that might be really competitive, if it's your primary home, might not even write it as a secondary. Or more, maybe they do, but they do it for a little bit different pricing. Overall, I would say the pricing's not terribly different between primary and secondary right now. In the past, I've seen it be pretty different, like a few $100s different. Probably not right now, but one of the things I like to work with people on is if it's really your secondary, let's talk for a few minutes about how much do you think you'll really have in the house from a personal property standpoint for your contents. Most people don't fully furnish that secondary house the way they would their primary, and they certainly don't have jewelry and other valuable things there normally. I mean, there's an exception to everything, but those are the kinds of things I like to talk about, because that may be a place we can shave off some premium if you don't need a lot of coverage on your contents. And actually, another little known thing, a lot of carriers will extend your contents coverage to your secondary home. So maybe you need little or none. Maybe you just need enough for the appliances, because your homeowner policy from back home might very well cover damage to the personal property down here. It's something we'll explore sometimes if we're trying to save premium. You may be already paying premium for your homeowner back home and let it work for you at the new house too for your contents. So there's ways we can kind of mitigate that premium too. And normally I would say no, primary and secondary, not a huge difference in price.
Good deal. I was making some notes here because it made me think of some other questions I wanted to ask along the way. And so just some couple things that I've learned, you know, having you work in the same company as me and being in the same office, I've learned a ton more about insurance over the last few years. You know, one of the things is when you're buying buying that second home or something you're going to rent out, you know, even if it's a second, you know, you're going to use it short-term rentals and the insurance is included in your HOA, there's still more to it that you need to look at as that homeowner to have insurance to cover you. You know, an HO6 policy. Can you talk about that for a second?
Honestly, so we could talk about HO6s for about 2 hours, probably.
Well, let's keep this to a 1 hour show.
Sure. Yeah. So first and foremost, it's important to know that really every single building's master deed is written differently. They're written for that particular building and that HOA, and they're all a little different. One of the things that we try to get to the bottom of with the customer is, what does the master policy in the condominium cover? Does it cover all the way inside the sheetrock, the paint or wallpaper, the cabinets, the countertops, the sinks and the toilets? Does it really cover all of that? There are a precious few that do, but most of them don't. Most of those master policies, especially, Jeremy, you might even remember the year. I want to say it was early 2000s when the insurance market, that commercial insurance market, went nuts. And a lot of the HOAs revisited their master deeds, so because the insurance got so expensive to cover so much of the building.
Would that have been at Hurricane Katrina time?
It might have been.
Because I know when Hurricane Katrina came through, all of those condo buildings went from, they had an HOA that may have been $300. Some of them jumped from $300 a month to $800 a month almost overnight. And they all were because their insurances tripled and quadrupled in those buildings.
Exactly. So at any rate, we want to get to the bottom of that, because for years, I would have realtors and lenders telling customers, oh, all you need is an HO6 policy, and it should be about $250 a year. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but an HO6 policy is not a loaf of bread. And for that matter, a loaf of bread at Trader Joe's is different from the one you're going to buy, at Dollar General tomorrow. So they're really not the same. It depends on how much coverage you buy. And some of these HOAs will cover all of that structural stuff inside your unit as long as it's original. But if you ever paint it, if you ever put wallpaper on it, if you ever change out the flooring, if you ever change the countertops or the cabinets, now it's yours and you have to cover it with your HO6. So on bigger units, that can be a lot of money. I mean, if you've ever done a kitchen remodel at home, then think, if I had a kitchen fire in my condo, how much would it cost me in dwelling coverage, or some policies will call that additions and alterations? How much is that going to cost me to put back? And then you can either pay premium to insure it, or you can pay for it out of pocket if something happens. And I would say that although we've had a couple apartment and condo fires in the last few years, really the most common kind of damage we see in a condo building is water. And it's water like from plumbing. It's not rain coming in from a hurricane. It's somebody's pipe burst, or the washing machine hose came loose, or the connection to their ice maker, came loose and dripped for 3 weeks while no one was there. So those are the kinds of things we want to make sure on the HO6 that you have enough coverage to put all of that back, and then also to replace or repair your contents that might be damaged. If there's 2 or 3 inches of water in your unit, most of your furniture is probably ruined too. So we want to make sure there's enough personal property coverage on each HO6. So pricing's all over the place depending on how much coverage you need.
Well, let me ask this too, Terri. If I'm buying, that oceanfront condo right now that I'm going to put tenants in there weekly, and while that person's in there, they're going to use take a shower at night after being out all night, and maybe they celebrated a little too hard, and they're not quite 100% on their feet. And as they're stepping over to get into the shower, they slip and fall and have a severe injury. Do I need some sort of special coverage to protect me as the owner, that they don't come back and sue me and say, well, it's because the floor was too slippery or something stupid and crazy like that?
Your HO6 policy should definitely include liability for the premises. It's important, even if it's just your primary, even if you live there full time, the liability is important. But in our day and age, there's so much litigation, personal litigation, that you want to make sure your policy has liability. And I always recommend, if anybody rents any property, that you've got $500,000 or more in liability. That scenario is not uncommon, Jeremy. I actually had a customer a few years ago. He had 2 or 3 rental units. I mean, like, he wasn't a mega, landlord, but he had, I think, 3 rental condos. And in one of them, this young couple had come for the week, and the floors in the kitchen were tile, and the mother had mopped the kitchen floor after dinner. Fair enough. Well, the 3-year-old child comes into the kitchen while the floor was wet, slipped and fell and bumped her head. And it wasn't, she was fine. It wasn't, it wasn't a life-altering injury. And they took her to the emergency room, fair enough. But they sued the condo owner because of the wet floors, and he wasn't even there. He wasn't the one who made them wet. He couldn't have been there to put up a wet floor sign, and the 3-year-old probably couldn't have read it anyways. But thankfully, he had the HO6 coverage, and it paid out. It's crazy to me what is paid in the courts right now. But yes, if you even have a guest, but definitely if you have tenants, and weeklies to me are even more important because you don't get to know them. It's not the same as having an annual tenant that you might know a little bit. Liability is critical.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Guys, I see a whole bunch of questions in the comments coming in. Keep them coming. That's awesome. But Terri, I want to jump into try to kind of switch gears for a second. And I want to go talk about something else that a lot of people don't think about when they're buying a house here in the area. Okay. And to kind of preface this, I think it's only fitting that I go to one of my favorite websites in the world, weather.com.
I spend too much time on weather.com.
And I just want to show everyone the latest and breaking news and the biggest thing that's going on in Elsa's latest track. And it's this horrible thing going on. And it's this terrible thing, and it's the worst thing in the world. Before I get into what I want to talk about with this, here's the first thing I want to say. Guys, be real careful with weather.com and some of your national newscasting sites that are out there when it comes to weather here locally. Let me just show you a second. So here's this video, and this one, you might have seen it before. Weather.com and the Weather Channel, and you see the guy, oh, I can barely stand up, and I'm trying to call in, and the wind is blowing. Notice the two guys walking behind him in their shorts and T-shirts, just like, hey, what's happening? You know, we're just walking along here. You know, he can barely stand. He's got to take this wide pose, and they're just walking along. So when it comes to local weather, here's what I'm going to say. This man right here,
absolutely,
is the only one that you should listen to ever when it comes to local weather here in Myrtle Beach. If you have not followed his Facebook page, I highly, 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 highly recommend you go over to Facebook, find Ed's page, and like it and follow it. When there is a major storm that is happening out there, he's going to do Facebook Live videos like 8 o'clock at night, almost every night. But he's going to give you the realistic as to what's going on with these storms.
No hype.
He's not going to give you the hype. He's going to give it to you straight. And, you know, if Ed says, hey, listen, this is going to be a Category 4 or Category 5, it's coming to Myrtle Beach, and we're expecting to see massive loss, that's when you pack up everything you own and you get the heck out of Dodge. But if Ed doesn't say that, if he just says, hey, guys, there's a storm coming, we don't know yet if it's coming to this area or not, we're not sure, don't believe the hype. You know, he will give you the updates. Here's the one he did 6 hours ago, and he goes through and he breaks it all down to where you can understand it and makes it very, very simple and easy. You know, here's what we can expect in our area. When Elsa comes through here, 25 to 35 mile an hour winds possible. There's a possibility a brief tornado will come through, but right now the risk is along east of I-95 to the coast. You know, and he breaks it all down for you. So as I always say, in Ed we trust. He likes to use that's what Ed said, but you know, follow him for all of that. But now that we kind of mentioned all of this in Elsa, let's talk about people that are buying a house right now or thinking of buying one, being in what we would call hurricane season here at the beach. How does that affect buying a house right now? If I'm trying to buy a house and close tomorrow and I haven't gotten my insurance yet, could I have a little bit of a problem?
You might this week even. And for any of you who do follow the weather around the Myrtle Beach area because you're interested in it, we had a tropical storm pop up right off the coast last week, and because it was so early in hurricane season, it took a lot of us by surprise. But literally, I was at work and emails start coming in from my company saying, we're under moratorium. You can no longer bind coverage because of tropical storm, or actually at that point it was tropical depression number 4. And I had not been paying attention to the weather myself. So, of course, immediately out to the Weather Channel. Oh yeah, there's a tropical depression. So here's what happens when our area, when any area, I mean, it can happen wherever, when an area is under a tropical storm watch, or in this case, tropical depression, the insurance companies don't want to add any new risks to their portfolio. They don't want to put insurance coverage on something that might imminently be damaged. So they will tell all of their agents, you can no longer bind new coverage. And it's a problem if, in fact, I had 2 people that were closing last week, and my whole goal that morning was that I had to wrap up their insurance, and I did. And one of them I placed 30 minutes before I got the moratorium, and I did a little happy dance. Thank you. It's done. Like, they're safe and they're done. But this week I think is going to be another issue. I've got some things we're going to have to wrap up possibly tonight or tomorrow in order to, if they're closing soon. Now, if your closing's not until the end of January, then, or January, the end of July, then, we've got time.
Or January, you got time as well.
Or January, got plenty of time. But I would say when you've had an offer accepted on a home, and if you know your financing is going to be fine, go ahead and start the process with the insurance as soon as you can. And I would say if you have loan approval and you have a date scheduled at the law firm, then nail down the insurance. Ask the agent to put it in place. We can do it as much as 30 days in advance of closing. That's the way to do it, because these things happen. A few years ago, we actually had back-to-back storm threats. We didn't end up getting hit by one, but I'm not exaggerating, almost 2 full weeks where I could not place any new coverage. I could quote it, I could talk to people, but I could not put their coverage in place because the moment we would think we were coming out of the woods on moratorium with the carriers, another storm was, on the horizon, and we couldn't do it. It was very nerve-wracking for everyone. So save yourself a headache. Go ahead and nail down the insurance, make all the changes that you want, get the quote that you want, and then sign the paperwork and ask the agent to bind it. Don't wait.
Yeah, I remember when I moved here back in, it was 1998 when we bought our home here. And I believe it was Hurricane Bonnie and Floyd, I think, were the ones that year. And I don't remember which one it was, but we were ready to buy our home and purchase here. And, my father didn't think anything about getting his insurance. And his agent that he had at the time didn't mention anything about, hey, if there's a named storm or any type of depression that's out in the Atlantic, there's a good possibility things are going to start to get shut down and you're not going to be able to get an insurance quote. Well, nobody told us. Here we are now, the week of closing, no insurance, and there's a named storm. So he ended up having to go through Lords of London. And I believe from what he said, we were buying a home up in Briarcliff Acres, east of 17. And I believe from what my father used to say is it was close to $7,000 for his insurance quote that he got. Now, for those of you who don't know Lords of London, they're the ones that do the crazy kind of insurance from what I've seen of like Jennifer Lopez's butt and Billy Joel's fingers for his piano playing. They do kind of the crazy, weird, wacky stuff, but that's who we had to go with. Now, if you do get caught in a situation where you have to go with that non-type 1 option 1 insurance company because they're not writing, get something, close on the home, and in a few months, you can go back and revisit it when hurricane season ends, and there's nothing saying you have to stick with that insurance company forever and a day. So
I will tell you too, Jeremy, that our world has changed a lot in the last 10 years, and even the Lloyd's programs now will shut us down. Especially when we get under a hurricane watch, if it reaches that status, we won't have access with any of our companies to bind coverage. And any of you know, if you have a lender, now if you don't have a lender, I guess you can close. It's your full investment that you're putting on the line. It's not what I would recommend because I'm not that lucky. For me, the 5 minutes I go without insurance is when my house is going to burn down or blow down. And, you know, maybe you had the first $300,000 to buy the house, but do you have it again? Plus money for all your contents? I just don't think it's smart. But if you've got a mortgage, they're not going to let you close without having the insurance in place. So the sooner you do it, you just take the stress off of everyone, yourselves included. Moving's stressful enough. Get the insurance out of the way.
For sure. Well, let's jump over a minute and back in and see if we have some questions. And guys, if you have questions and you want to know anything about insurance, and by the way, we're going to get into this in a little bit more, not just homeowners insurance, but Terri can do insurance on anything that you're needing, basically. So if you have questions about those, ask them as well. We don't have to talk about just housing here. We talk about other things, and it's okay. But let's jump over and see what we have in the questions here. Trent said, Trent's a regular watcher here. He said he loved the $1 Million Tour video. I'm glad you liked it. It was fun to do that one. Getting in $1 million properties here at the beach is always a fun thing to do. Surfside Gunny says hello. Gustavo says hello from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Hey, Gustavo, I'm coming up your way at the end of August to go to a concert in Charlotte, and we're staying right on the border there in Rock Hill. Going to be fun. I'm excited. Hi from Myrtle Beach. Moved here a year ago and have loved every moment of it. Of course you have. It's Myrtle Beach. It's a great place.
Who doesn't love it?
Exactly. Slick Rick, I love his name. Slick Rick says, what's going on? What's going on with you, Rick? That's the real question. Surfside Gunny says, hey, JB and Terri, why do some developments have sidewalks and some do not? Does this have to do with flooding to keep costs down? Thank you.
It has nothing to do with flooding, and I hope Jeremy knows the answer because I think that sidewalks are awesome and they make a neighborhood so much nicer. It all has to do with the developer, I think.
It all has to do with the developer and cost is really what it comes down to, I believe. You know, my development has sidewalks around the main street. I live in the farm at Carolina Forest, and so it's a big loop, and the loop has a sidewalk that goes around it on one side of the street. But then when you get to the interior streets in there, there's no sidewalks at all. And honestly, I think it's just cost. Concrete costs more money than throwing down a piece of sod.
Think so too.
Taz wants to know, how can you sue for that? Taz,
the condo thing. I know.
People can sue. They can sue for anything.
Yeah, here's the thing in the United States. You can sue anybody and it can be completely baseless. It doesn't stop you from bringing suit as long as an attorney will take it. And guess what? Individuals have to defend themselves. So your homeowner's insurance can and the liability can help pay to defend you.
Yep.
So you know.
I remember when I lived up in Pennsylvania, an attorney suing the Philadelphia Public Transit because the guy went to get on the subway and he didn't realize that there was a gap between the subway and the concrete that you step on, and his foot got caught there and he had some major injury from it. And he sued them because they didn't have a sign saying "Watch the gap."
Like in London, the Tube has all these signs and announcements. Mind the gap.
Yep, he got millions and millions and millions of dollars because of it. Yep. So let's see what else. Tess says, I planned on buying a few condos. That is something I'll have to consider. Yeah, you definitely want to take it into consideration. If you're planning to buy multiple condos here in the area, you may want to think about, instead of buying them in your personal name, if you're paying cash, putting them in and creating some sort of a business name, putting them in that. Just crazier things can happen. People can come sue you for whatever. But no matter what you do, get the insurance. You know, an HO6 policy, Terri, let's say we're buying a $200,000 one-bedroom oceanfront condo. What kind of costs can I expect for an HO6 policy? It's not that bad, is it?
Yeah, you know, those one bedrooms, if we're saying it's, you know, less than 1,000 square feet, I would say they're not as cheap as they used to be. But I would say $500-ish, $600 a year, and you can have your $500,000 liability and enough coverage for the inside of the structure and the personal property. The other thing an HO6 policy gives you too, guys, that you might not know, is it gives you loss of rents coverage. So that if there is damage in the unit and maybe you had it lined up to be rented for the next 6-8 weeks, you could collect, now there's a dollar limit, but you could collect some of that lost rental income while the unit can't, is being repaired. So there's a lot that comes with the HO6 policy for the money. Well worth it. The liability alone. I mean, if somebody sues you like the one with the slip and fall, I mean, $600 versus $300,000 is what this family collected from the policy. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you break it down into monthly, which is what I like to do, $50 a month.
Right.
It's worth its weight in gold. Jeff says, question, not flood related. Where can you get a great pizza in Myrtle Beach? Terri, where is your favorite pizza joint?
There is lots of great pizza in Myrtle Beach, but if you're like, I'm a pizza snob. I like true New York City style pizza. So I like that real thin crust. I want you to be able to fold it in half and the grease run off the back. Like that's my favorite kind of pizza. And near me, because I'm on the South End and Surfside, we love Doughboy's Pizza. It's off of 544. But there's lots of other kinds of pizza, and I know there's a lot of other good places too.
Doughboy's is definitely great. I've tried that before in the southern end. In the middle, in Carolina Forest, my two personal favorites, and I actually have thought about doing a video on this in the near future on the best slice in all of Horry County. Yeah, and there's some good spots, but in Carolina Forest, you have Gino's Pizza. They have a location in the Carolina Forest Shopping Center. They also have one over off of Forest Brook, and I think it's called the Forest Brook Plaza, where you can get Gino's. Right near my office here is also Scotto's Pizza, which is very good. Gino's also has some spots, I think, on the northern and southern end of the beach.
They do too.
And then as you head up towards North Myrtle Beach, a personal favorite of mine, I don't know if you've ever been there, Terri, but you should definitely try it. King's Pizza, right on 17th.
In North Myrtle Beach?
Yep.
Yeah, I have. It's been several years, but yeah, their pizza's good too.
It is a dive.
Like 3 times a week.
Yep. It is an old hole-in-the-wall building. It looks like a dive joint, but man, it has good pizza there. Yep. Now, I have a good friend. Every time she comes down anywhere near the South Carolina line, she takes a trip all the way there to King's to get pizza at least once. So, Jeff, hopefully that gives you some good options of good spots to grab pizza here. In the
Jeff, come down and make your own pizza tour.
There you go. There you go.
With you.
All right. Kenneth wants to know, when does summer rentals end as interested in one-bedroom condo? It's interesting. The rental market here in our area has really grown over the years. If you go back 10 years ago, it used to be basically once Labor Day hit, the market kind of died off, and you had a little bit during the fall, and then it would kick back up again as spring break rolled around. But nowadays, what I have seen, we are becoming much more of a year-round destination. So you can expect decent rental income on properties, I would say, up till about Thanksgiving. And usually around Thanksgiving, everything kind of slows down and comes to a halt. During the holidays, there's nobody in town between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's really when everything's vacant. And if you're coming to stay in the area, you can probably find a place to rent for the cheapest price. But for some reason, that week in between Christmas and New Year's, I don't know why, everybody and their aunt and uncle, it's like almost like summertime here.
It's like family reunion place.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of people that come. And then New Year's Eve, it dies off again, and it's then slow till about the first week of February, and then it starts to pick up. We've become more of a year-round destination because you guys have to realize we have tons of golf courses here in the area. So the golfers love to come down here during the fall and winter months and golf in the area. They can get a place to rent cheap. They get to play golf because in New York, New Jersey, you can't go golfing in the winter. You got several feet of snow on the ground most of the time, and you can't get out there and do it. You can bring your shorts, come down here, play a couple rounds in some of the most beautiful golf courses you can ever see. And during that time, the ryegrass, they usually seed the courses with ryegrass, so it's like a carpet. It's beautiful green. Definitely a great time to come play. Would you kind of agree with that, Terri?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, if you're interested in putting snowbirds in your rental condos, then January, February, March are really good months for that. Jeremy knows better. The rental income's not as high, but those are great months when a lot of people come really to escape the harshest winter from up north and hang out here.
You know, it's funny you brought that up, and we had somebody earlier, I believe, who was from Canada on here. Mm-hmm. During those snowbirds are usually a lot of people from Canada. I remember a couple years back, they had a matching of dollar for dollar on rental, and to kind of entice the Canadians to come down here during those winter months. But during those winter months, you can sometimes find an oceanfront condo. You know, it's not real huge, maybe 600 square feet, but you're paying maybe $700 a month to live oceanfront. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they're going to rent them out for a month or two or maybe 3, where you can come in, get that kind of somewhat long-term rental place to stay for an extremely affordable price, and you don't have to worry about snow. My 6-year-old has seen snow in her life once. It was 1/4 of an inch, and by lunchtime it was melted and gone. So, all right, coming on here. Jeff asked, how is access to public beaches? I'm not sure which part of the beach you're asking about. Terri, I know you live down on the southern end, so why don't you share about what it's like down there?
If you mean like after COVID or that kind of thing, I would say we are wide open. And what I saw on the news, I didn't go to the beach. We actually went out of town this weekend, but the beaches were packed. And I would say this from just a general standpoint, now that people are back in town. There's a lot of good public access, especially in Surfside and Garden City, where there's parking. It's paid parking now. It's metered parking. But there's plenty of it and lots of places to access the beach. There are some stretches in Myrtle Beach that are a little more difficult. They're more residential neighborhoods, and frankly, they're trying to keep tourists, from being in some of those neighborhoods, I think. But then there's other parts that are wide open, and the state parks have great beach access too.
Yeah, and when you get into Myrtle Beach, my personal favorite section of the beach, when I want to go down with the family and enjoy a day at the beach, is to go right down to the Golden Mile. I've referred to the Golden Mile many times on videos. I've done whole videos about the Golden Mile of Myrtle Beach. It's a section basically down in the avenues of Myrtle Beach, probably around 30th Avenue or so, up to about 50th Avenue. And it's basically all residential homes. But every 2 to 3 houses, there's a public beach access, and there's 10 to 15 spots in each of those places that you can pull in, get a place to park. Just like down in Surfside, it's you pay now for it. There's an app, you download the app. There's a QR code. You scan it with your phone. It opens up the app. You download it, put your information in. I think it's like $2 an hour. It doesn't cost hardly anything. And if you stay the whole day, I think it's like a total of $10. But you can go down to the beach and, have a great time there. But like I said, in Myrtle Beach, once you get out of the hotel section, it's about every 2 to 3 houses, there's a public beach access. There's a blue sign. It says beach access along the road, and you can pull into any one. If you pull into one, it's full. You drive down another block to the next one and pull in there. And there's always spots to get there. But, our beaches are definitely opened back up and full force going on for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Tass wants to know, what do you notice the most with the influx of people moving here? I'm not sure what they want to know. What do you notice the most? I just noticed more people here. Our area is growing. The roads are growing. Some of the sections of the beach that where it's real heavy traffic, they're widening the roads, turning them into 5-lane roads. But here's the thing. I share this all the time with people. Vacationing in Myrtle Beach is very different than living in Myrtle Beach. Could you agree with that statement, Terri?
Absolutely.
It's a very, very different mindset. When you're coming on vacation, you want to be close to Broadway at the beach where you can go and do the fun things. You want to be able to take that helicopter ride. You want to be able to go to Barefoot Landing. You want to be able to go to the shows and do all that stuff. When you live here, you don't want to be anywhere near that stuff. You don't want to be going to a restaurant where you have to wait. You know, I love Carolina Roadhouse, one of my favorite restaurants in all the area. But I am not going to go and wait for 3 hours to get a table there. No way, no how, not happening at any point. Instead, I'm going to go to restaurants west of the waterway in Carolina Forest where I live and eat. You know, Terri, you live down on the southern end. I doubt that you're spending a lot of time at the tourist spots. You know, you're probably not going, what is it, Krabby Mike's or whatever down there and getting, you know, crab legs and all that to wait 2 hours for a table.
In fact, all summer long, if we go out to dinner, we maybe do it once all summer because someone's in town. We will go out at lunch and just eat a big lunch because to us, it's not worth fighting the crowds for dinner. It's just, I mean, we'll go another time or we'll go, you know, in whatever constitutes off season for us now. So I would say one of the things I notice about the influx of people moving here is just there's a lot more traffic. But on the other hand, we also have a lot more to offer. There's a lot more shops and there's more restaurants and there's more of everything. So.
Yeah. And you know, one of the good things that did come out of COVID is that when COVID first began and all the restaurants and businesses were shut down, they had to shut down their dining rooms. A lot of them opened up online ordering and to-go ordering in that. And so if we do want to eat from one of those places, I'm picking up the phone, doing to-go ordering and picking it up and taking it back to my house to eat it. I'm not going to waste the time going in all those places for sure. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? How is the Caravel Resort? I'm not sure what your question is about it. It's a great building complex. They did have during one of the storms, you know, Terri, you talked about the HO6 policy covering loss of rental income. I want to say it was during Matthew maybe that they had some issues with a lot of their rooms having water come into them from the storm, and they had to have a lot of work done and shut down the building for several months. And so in that case, you definitely want to make sure you have that HO6 to cover those types of things. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else do we have here. CC says, is there a vehicle property tax? Yes, yearly. How is the rate determined? Yes, there is taxes you pay on your vehicles here. I don't know all of the specifics of how they determine the rates. What I can tell you is this. It's based on the value of your car. And so each year, just how your value of your vehicle depreciates, so will that monthly fee. I drive a 2015 Ford Explorer, and I believe my taxes last year were right around, and it's registered under my business name, so it's a little bit higher. But I think I paid like $380 for my vehicle. My wife used to own an older Honda Odyssey van, and it was about 15 years old at the time. And I think our taxes on that were like $80 for the year. It was nothing. Anything you want to add to that, Terri?
No, I was going to say it's a mystery formula how they calculate the taxes, but it is generally speaking based on the book value, like Jeremy said. So that's about all we know about that. It's a mystery.
It really is. Let's see. Roosevelt Grimes. Hey, Roosevelt, thanks for the question. Is there a storm forecast for the upcoming weekend? And I would say on this, going back here again, this guy right here, what Ed says. If you want to know what it is, go over here to Facebook, go to Ed Piotrowski, WPDE, and you can read the forecast update as of Monday at noon. Listen to what Ed says Not what these people say. Listen to Ed. No to weather.com. Yes to Ed.
I do think that the storm is supposed to be long gone by the weekend, though, generally speaking. I think whatever we're going to have will be here and gone by the middle of the week. I hope it's going to be nice next week.
Yeah, from the latest I heard was by like Wednesday into maybe Thursday, it was supposed to be here and gone. And yeah, long gone by then. And here's the beautiful thing. After those tropical storms come through, usually the weather, like the few days right after it, is absolutely pristine, gorgeous in our area.
We had, I don't remember what storm, we had one storm, and when we came back and we're cleaning up pine straw and everything in our backyard, it was so hot and humid. It was disgusting.
It can be hot. All right, let's see. Lynn said, I like that the grandstand Strand has a change of season with no snow.
Me too.
That's Lynn, it's funny you say that because I deal with a lot of people who are moving here and they say, well, we were thinking about going to Florida, but then we decided on South Carolina. And the two main reasons why they choose our area over Florida is this. Number one, a lot of the people moving here are coming from the Northeast, and they like the fact that they can do it in a one-day drive back and forth. Whereas if they're in Florida, it's going to be 2 days of driving. So that's the big reason. And then the other thing is that when you go to Florida, you have basically 2 seasons, hot and hotter. Here in Myrtle Beach, we do still have a fall. The trees do lose their leaves, and we have a little bit of winter, but even in the middle of winter on the coldest of days, it might get into the 20s at night, but still during the middle of the day, it's getting up in the mid 40s, mid 50s, and so we still do have all 4 seasons of the year. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why people say, let's go to South Carolina instead. All right, let's see here. RSLS. I almost said that wrong. I was getting all dyslexic with it. Talk to me about HOA assessment protection with an HO6. Ooh, somebody's getting a real deep question.
Yeah, we are. So really high level. An HO6 policy does provide some loss assessments coverage. Here's the caveat with that, though. The assessment that you receive has to be for something, a covered peril that your HO6 policy would have covered. So my main example is if a child dies in the swimming pool at your community, whether it be a homeowner community or a condo community, and the HOA doesn't have enough liability coverage to pay the lawsuit that ensues from that, they can give a special assessment to every unit owner. Because your HO6 policy includes liability, the HO6 policy would pay up to your stated limit on your policy for that loss assessment, for that assessment bill. If you get an assessment because the building has termite damage or because they need to replace the roof and didn't have enough in reserves or anything like that, then your HO6 policy will not respond. So you got to think, is it something that happened to the common area? So maybe they have bad hurricane damage to the clubhouse area or something. And because wind and hail would be covered by your HO6, if they didn't have enough insurance from an HOA standpoint and they gave you a special assessment, that's something your HO6 policy could step in and pay.
Awesome. All right. So we're getting down to the end of the questions. So if you guys have some more, go ahead and put them in. And while they are doing that, Terri, I want you to talk a minute. One of the things I did not realize until I recently did a new construction home is that a lot of times insurance companies give incentives and breaks and all kinds of good discounts if somebody buys a brand new home versus one that is 3 to 4 years old. I, as a real estate agent, always tell people, listen, you can save a little bit of money sometimes buying that house that's a couple years old versus one that is brand new out of the gate. But you do get warranties when you buy new. And one of the things that I've started to tell people in addition is not only do you get warranties, but you can also save a good chunk of money when it comes to the insurance. So why don't you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. There are some amazingly low rates. Even for the coast, there are some amazingly low rates on new construction. And the builder's warranty is a big factor in that, because a lot of these companies, insurance companies, will also give discounts if the home was constructed by a builder that meets their list of preferred builders, because they know there is a warranty from the builder. They also know that that house meets all the most current building codes. So for our coastal counties, that means it has wind mitigation features and should, we hope, stand up better to high winds and the kind of severe weather that we get, even with tougher shingles to withstand our really high temperatures and beating sun all summer long. So the insurance carriers give some really big discounts, both for the first time homeowner as well as for new construction, and then for using a builder that meets their preferred builder list. And the insurance can be substantially lower on the exact same model house that's brand new versus one that's 5 years old. By substantially, I'm saying $500 a year difference if it hits all the right bells and gets all of the best discounts. Now, that being said, bear in mind, if you buy the brand new home and you get all those fantastic discounts year one, they usually work on as some sort of percentage of the base premium. So let's say the first year you get 30% worth of credits off the homeowner premium. Well, the next year it might only be 27 or 28%. And the year after that, it might be 25 or 26%. So it's going to seem like your rate's going up. Price wise, it kind of is, but what's actually happening is those discounts start to fall off. And normally over the course of about 10 years, all of those new home credits fall off. And then you're just looking at regular homeowner premium. So yeah, new homes, well, they are less expensive to insure.
Interesting. I never knew that. That was something that, I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, the discounts they give, I mean, it was substantial, because you told me, I remember you showed me the quote and you're like, hey, yeah, it's only $1,200 for this house. I'm like, wait a minute. That house is way smaller than mine, and I'm paying this. And you said, well, it's because it's a new home, Jeremy, and my house is, was built in 2006. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's not old, but it's not brand new.
Right. And then you asked me, you said, is your roof new? No. How about your HVAC system? No. How about no? Okay, and I went on my merry way with it. All right, let's see. We have a couple questions that have come in here. Let's see. Roosevelt says, thanks. They'll be coming in Wednesday. You may have a little bit of a messy Wednesday, but hopefully by Thursday afternoon, it will all be cleared out of here, and you'll be good to go.
I'm ordering nice weather. We'll see if we get it.
Yeah, right? All right, Lynn says, do you think that since the horrific accident in Surfside, Florida, that most oceanfront homeowners associations are going to make sure their buildings are structurally safe? Yes.
We would like to hope so.
Yeah, I would be shocked if all the buildings, oceanfront, anywhere along the East Coast at least, have not either been inspected or are going to be inspected here in the very near future because of that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Kevin, Ian, I'm not going to try to say the last name Kevin. Sorry, no, not. I'll let Terri try to say that one. I won't.
Ian Antuano.
Close enough.
We're going with.
Cannot wait to move out of the high tax state of Connecticut and into Surfside Garden City area. Thanks for the reminder about the Golden Mile beaches. We'll be in touch in August. Fantastic. Call me. I'll get you the house. Call Terri. She'll insure it for you. And not only will she insure your house, but one of the things I wanted to say, Terri, as well, is you can also do insurance for their vehicles, for contents, for whatever they may need. You can do all of that stuff, right?
All of that. So yeah, although my office is inside the same Remax office building where Jeremy sits, We Insure office is an independent agency. We are open to the public. So we don't just write homeowners insurance, but we of course write every kind of property. So the condo, the HO6, the landlord policy, that kind of thing. But once you're moved, or if you buy a secondary home and want to leave a car here, then we have lots of carriers that write auto insurance. We can do golf carts. We can do personal umbrella, boats. I do not personally, but my company has folks that write life and health insurance. So we really are a full service insurance agency, can help you with anything. I was going to mention, and Jeremy, you probably want to comment on this too, that, when you leave some of those Northeast states, you are definitely going to see an improvement in your taxes. However, the insurance is going to be more. And sometimes people get really hung up on that, but I ask them, take a pause and compare the totals. You are still going to find that you're going to come out better in South Carolina as a package. For your insurance and taxes are still going to be way lower as a total than what you've paid back home because the taxes are so high. I grew up in central New York State. I know. My brother's in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So I know. It's terrible. Our insurance is a lot more, but our taxes are so much less. And we have some of the lowest power and utility costs in the nation.
Yeah, and that's so very true. I talk to people all the time coming here from New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Connecticut, all of those places up along the Northeast. And when I always start the conversation, they're asking about taxes. I always ask them, well, what are you paying right now? And they always give it to me when they give it to me in a per month, I just smile and laugh, and they're like, oh, I'm paying $1,100 per month.
Yeah.
You're paying $1,100 a month or, $14,000 a year for your taxes on your property up there, but your insurance may be, only $1,200, and down here your insurance is $1,900 or $2,000.
Yeah.
And yes, you're paying a tax on your vehicle, which might be $500. But if you add all three of those things together, your vehicle tax, your insurance, and your property tax, you're still going to be way, way under what you're paying right now. You're going to save, most people $8,000 to $10,000 minimum they're saving on it. So keep that in mind. All right, let's see here. Lynn says, you're funny, Jeremy. Hot and hotter.
Our seasons.
Yes.
In Florida, seasons.
Florida season. They do have two. We're giving them that. One thing I will say about our season here that a lot of people don't realize, we do have a high humidity. So be prepared for that. Our temperatures may say it's only 85 degrees, but when you put the humidity into that, it can still be a lot, even in the 85s. All right. Will wants to know, can you explain a little in depth about refinancing your home after you better your credit score for a better rate? I don't know if you're talking about the mortgage side or the insurance side. From the mortgage side, once you get your score up, you can definitely refinance and save a ton of money by getting a much better rate, depending on when you bought the home. On the mortgage, if you bought it 2019 or earlier, you're definitely going to save a ton of money on it right now if you're planning to stay in the home. If you're planning to sell that home in the next year, I would not recommend looking at doing the refinance, because any bit of money you save on your monthly payment, you're going to pay that and then some on the closing costs, because you're basically closing the whole loan again. So you're going to have all those fees, appraisals, all that stuff that goes into it. And that's going to be several $1,000s that you're going to lose. But if you plan to stay in the home, then definitely do it. Now, from the insurance side, how would you answer that one, Terri?
If you know that you have drastically improved your credit score since you purchased the insurance, and honestly, this is true as much with auto insurance as homeowner. If you know that you've drastically improved your score, then it's definitely worth asking your agent to shop it. Some insurance companies do run a new score every 2 years or so anyway. So the answer may be you've already benefited from your improved credit score, but it's definitely worth speaking with your agent and letting them specifically ask your current carrier, when did you run the score? We think the customer has improved, or just shopping it again, just going back to market and shop with the carriers and see who has the best pricing for you. It may be your current one, but if you know you've had it, then let's take a look.
And another question for you, Terri. Do you provide business insurance?
I do. I do small commercial insurance, so I don't get involved in any manufacturing or big businesses. But we definitely write small business insurance and work comp and that kind of thing. My particular office, this new venture, has only been open since October, and I've written an antique shop, and I have coverage for a man who has 5 apartment buildings. So that kind of varied things. Offices, I shouldn't say. So lots of real estate offices and that kind of thing. That's kind of my bread and butter.
Awesome. Guys, if you're enjoying the information that Terri is sharing today, can you just show her a little bit of love in the comments? Just say, Terri, thank you so much. You're awesome. Great information. She needs a little bit of ego boost, I think. So can we give that to her tonight?
I do.
Hopefully you're getting a lot out of tonight. I really hope so. And while y'all are typing that, and if you have other questions, please put them into, if not, we're going to turn this off here probably in just a couple minutes. Because gosh, Terri, we've been talking for an hour and 40 minutes almost.
Well, that's the thing. So Jeremy can talk real estate and I can talk insurance until everyone falls asleep.
But 36 people are still awake, so we didn't put them to sleep yet. So let's see here. Jeff said $8,000 in property taxes in New Jersey. I think the costs in South Carolina are going to be a lot better. I can tell you they are. I
think so too.
I share this story all the time about one of my clients who moved down here from Rhode Island. They had a home. It was built in 1968. It was 1,200 square feet. They took the garage and converted it into a 3rd bedroom for their child so that they had 3 bedrooms in their house. They sold it there, bought down here, and their monthly payments went down $39. The home that they bought here was brand new, 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 3,000 square feet with amenities and community. Had a pool, had a clubhouse, all the stuff you can think of, and they saved $38 a month.
That's awesome.
So it's definitely affordable living here. Let's see here, Terri. They want to know, what are your favorite festivals?
I don't even know. Festivals are a lot of hit and miss now since COVID. But a few years ago, there's a couple, and honestly, I can't say that there's any right here in Myrtle Beach that are my very favorites, but in Mount Pleasant at Patriots Point, they do a what they call a mac off. It's basically a super high-end mac and cheese festival. So all of these restaurants come and put out their best, you get a little taste of their best mac and cheese recipes. So for example, we had one with pork belly. We had one with shrimp. I mean, it was incredible. That was a fantastic one. Most of my favorites are going to revolve around food. That one had music too, but my favorite festivals are food. So we also love to go up to Kinston, North Carolina. They have the largest whole hog barbecue competition in the world, I think. That's usually in May. It's called Barbecue on the Noose. That's another one of my favorite festivals. So yeah, fish food, I'm going to be there.
Yeah, some of my favorite ones, some of the first off, the biggest festival I would say of probably any that we have in our area just happened a few weeks ago. It was the Carolina Country Music Festival. Yep. It is huge. I believe this year they said they had over 30,000 people in attendance. It's a country music festival for several days here at the beach. Personally, myself, I'm not a big country music person, so I don't attend it. But I know many, many locals who do go to it and check it out. One that my wife has gone to before that she absolutely loved and adored is the Loris Bog Off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been there too. That one's good.
When I moved here, I didn't know what the heck chicken bog was. And then somebody said, have you ever been to the Loris Bog Off? And I'm like, the what? But that's a good one. I know there's the Blue Crab Festival up on the northern end of the beach, that they do that. I think now that COVID is over, a lot of things are starting to come back. Down inside Myrtle Beach, they have a lot of times art in the park and stuff right there at the Chapin Memorial Park. That's great stuff to do. Market Common has a festival, I think, every weekend, it seems.
I think so too. Yeah, just go and see what's happening. I forgot to mention too, I don't think they did it last year or they did it online or some crazy thing, but at Huntington Beach State Park, Atalaya does a really tremendous arts and crafts festival in the fall, and that is amazing. If you see, I didn't even eat at that one, but it's a great one.
Yep. The Socastee Swing Bridge Festival is also another one. I don't know if you've ever been to that one, but that one's kind of cool. Down in the southern end of Myrtle Beach, there in the section called Socastee, there is a swing bridge. It's an old bridge that used to be used, and that was the main way to get in and out through the area, and all the boats would go through. And so it's a drawbridge, but instead of being like a normal one that lifts up and down, it rotates and swings in and out. And so a few years back, the Socastee Swing Bridge Heritage Association or something like that was formed, and they started to create a festival around it. That one's usually in, I think it's like the beginning of April. There's also usually the same weekend of that, there is the Dragon Boat Festival over in Market Common. And then the other big thing that draws a lot of people to our area is the Myrtle Beach Marathon. That gets a lot of people who come in town to run. And then there's also, there's the bike festivals, which, you've seen and heard a lot about them. There's also a Mustang festival. If you drive a Mustang, you might want to check that one out as well. But those are probably some of the most popular festivals here in the area that come to mind. Look, somebody gave you a thumbs up, Terry.
Thank you.
You got some thumbs up. Jeff said, the information is great, helps with making big life choices. Glad we could help you make those big choices, Jeff. We're here to help you any way we can. And then Lynn says, you are awesome, Terry. Not only did she say you're awesome, she gave you a smiley emoji, the American flag for 4th of July, and some hands saying, thank you so much. I never get those types of hands and thumbs. What's up with that? I don't get it. You
must not have asked for them.
Oh, I guess so. That's true. But guys, I hope you're enjoying tonight. Hopefully you guys got some good information. Terry, this is the time where I want you to tell everyone if they need to find out information about insurance, if they have any questions. Let me ask it this way first. Terry, if people are thinking about moving to the area, whether it's to buy, whether it's to rent, whether it's for auto or home, if they have questions about insurance, if they want to reach out to you and ask those questions, is that okay? Or are you going to yell and scream at them and say, don't bother me?
I never yell and scream and say, don't bother me. And I'll tell you, I do a lot of work for people that, it may be months, it might be 2 years before you make a move. And that's okay, because it takes some homework to make sure that you're going to be in the right spot. Just like working with a realtor, not every neighborhood is the same, and you want to check them all out. So I am totally happy to answer questions. Sometimes the answer may be, I don't know, or, I need to find out. But I am happy to help you and direct you in any way. And if you want to get me, there's a million ways to get me. So, Jeremy's showing our website address. You can also follow We Insure Advocates on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. In fact, I do a weekly video on each of those about some little insurance topic, and I'm always looking for suggestions for those. So if you have a question that you think would make a great video, feel free to send that my way. You can email me at terry.branson@weinsuregroup.com. And my phone is 843-491-6990. You can pretty much get me any which way.
Yeah, and guys, like I said, Terri knows this stuff. Here's her website so you can kind of see all her information. It has her phone number there. There's her email if you need to get her, terry.branson@weinsuregroup.com. Oh, hold on. I got my comment on screen. You got to tell me to move it, Jeremy.
Oh, move it.
There you go. So here's her phone number, 843-491-6990. or you can email her, terry.branson@weinsuregroup.com. I can tell you from personal experience, if you have questions, you can shoot her an email and she will get back to you. She's awesome to work with, knows a lot about this. You've been doing it for many years. You've been in the area for many years. And, when it comes to, you're making one of the most expensive purchases of your life. And you want to make sure that purchase is protected properly, that it has the right stuff going on. And so you want to make sure, as we started in the beginning, somebody asked, where's the cheapest place to get insurance? You don't want the cheapest. You want the right. You want to make sure that you have the best, because
it's the best value. It may not be the most expensive one, but it also may not be the cheapest one.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, when disaster strikes and you need that coverage, whether it's, somebody rear ends your vehicle and you need to get coverage to fix it, or, a hailstorm or whatever crazy things may happen, you need coverage. And when you need it, you want the right stuff. And Terry's going to make sure you get the best of it. And Terry, I appreciate you joining in today. Janet says, Jeremy and Terry, thank you so much. Moving next year to Myrtle. Yay. I will contact you both, and Erica too. Hey, Janet, awesome. Janet must have been around when I did the one a few weeks back with Erica. And guys, if you liked Terry being on tonight and you would like her to join us again sometime, let us know that too. Because Terry, if people have more questions in the future, would you be willing to come back and join us again sometime?
Absolutely. And if anybody has like a certain topic that you feel like we didn't address or didn't dig into deeply enough, then share that too, and we can focus on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, there's still, I know, a bunch of you on here, but unless I'm going to give you to the count of 10 to put your question in, if not, I'm hitting the end, and Terry's going to go on to enjoying her night, and I'm going to go to the house.
Go home. So, thanks, 10, guys.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I can't even do it on camera. 2.
You can't even count.
All right. Awesome. Bye, y'all. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.